were you involved in the present case specifically on October 13th of 2021?
I was.
Okay. Did you respond to the scene at 122 Canebrake?
I did.
And when you were responding to the scene, what specifically was your role there? What were your priorities in responding to the scene?
I was at the law enforcement center at the homicide office when the call came in, and other investigators and officers were already at the scene. So before I left, I was tasked with obtaining the search warrant for the scene at 122 Canebrake.
Okay. And so on getting that search warrant, do you thereafter go through the scene?
Yes, I do.
The house, I mean.
Correct. And once I obtained it, I delivered it to the scene and responded for any other duties they were requesting.
Okay. What were your observations of the scene at the time that you went through it?
When I got there, the road was blocked off, probably a block or two on each side, by patrol vehicles, yellow crime scene tape, and we also had personnel blocking intersections and protecting the scene around 122.
Okay. And so going through the house, what were your observations there specifically?
I didn't do that until later that evening. I was there for hours. Crime scenes was processed and documented the scene. So I was waiting for another task, and I was documenting information where other investigators were going door to door looking for like video surveillance and things like that. But I didn't have another task until later in the afternoon. I did a secondary search, or later. It was hours later, almost at dusk, to go to the crime scene.
So that would be after the technicians go through, collect
Correct.
what they deem necessary?
Yes.
Okay. So at the time you went through the scene, were you able to identify or collect anything at that time?
Yes. I was with the investigator's department at the time in a white plastic bag with a white powder substance in the living room near the front door.
Okay. You said the living room. Was the living room the same room that Ms. Parcell was found?
That's correct.
Okay. If I showed you a picture of that substance, would you recognize it?
I would.
Okay. Approaching you with State's Exhibit 9 and State's Exhibit 37. Starting with State's Exhibit 37, what is that?
That's the clear plastic bag with a white powder substance I observed in the living room area that you spoke of.
Okay. And did you subsequently, and I don't want to say collect it, but did you subsequently pick it up to identify it?
I did.
Okay. Showing you what State's Exhibit 9. Can you confirm for me that that is the bag that you picked up and identified?
It is.
Okay. So that's the position that you found that bag when you went to the house.
That's correct.
And then 9 is the actual bag.
That's it.
Your Honor, this time the state would move State's Exhibit 9 to evidence.
Which is 9? Now, I don't have a problem with the photograph coming into evidence. I don't think the full foundation has been completed for 9 in order to be entered into evidence.
I'm happy to continue later.
Number 37 comes into evidence, lay the foundation.
After collecting what is State's Exhibit 9, what did you do after that?
I conducted a field test on it to see if it was a controlled substance.
Why do you say, so in your first observations, you believed it to be a controlled substance?
Yes, sir. I had a previous assignment in narcotics for 14 years, and to me it appeared to be the way it was packaged and appeared to be a controlled substance.
Okay, so what occurred after you conducted a field test?
It did a presumptive test for cocaine with a field test.
After that field test was conducted, what did you do thereafter with
It was ultimately secured in the property and evidence section at the Greenwood County Law Enforcement Center to be secured.
So it was thereafter submitted into evidence?
It was.
Your Honor, at this time the state would move into evidence what is State's Exhibit 9?
Can I just on again continue my objection? There hasn't been a full chain established yet throughout the continuation of where that evidence went. So until that happens, we would have an objection to it being entered.
Anything from the state?
Your Honor, a full chain doesn't need to be established at this point. This is the individual that collected State's Exhibit 9, conducted the initial the field test of State's Exhibit 9, At this point, the foundation's been laid for whatever it may be to be introduced.
I agree. Your objection has on the record.
After collecting what was State's Exhibit 9 during your time on the 13th at Canebrake, what other roles were you associated with there?
I did a secondary search later after other investigators searched the rooms, but I never found anything significant of evidentiary value.
Understood. Thank you, Investigator Garrett. I have no further questions for you.
Thank you, I really appreciate it. So what was the reason for going back into the residence later that day?
I was on another team we were assigned different rooms to search for evidence, and I can't remember the rooms I searched, but I think there were the living room, another bedroom. There's multiple rooms in the residence, and groups had already searched, and then other investigators would search and cross and search behind them to make sure we didn't miss anything or just double check each room.
Do you know how many investigators and forensics technicians had already searched the house?
I don't. I know there were several out there, several investigators and a lot of forensic technicians, but I don't know the exact number.
Around what time was it when you and Investigator Sparkman went back in to do the subsequent search?
Dusk, around 6:30-ish.
Okay, and State's Exhibit 37, so you said this accurately portrays where that bag with suspected controlled substance was when you saw it?
It does.
That is before it was moved.
That's for what?
I'm sorry, this is before any officers.
That's right.
did
That's
the
where
visit.
forensics documented its original location.
And so it is clearly observable to somebody walking by?
Yeah, you can see it. It was pointed out pretty early, I think.
Okay, so had that already been known to have been there, or did you find it?
It is already known. It was brought to my attention.
So somebody already told you that there's suspected controlled
Correct.
substance in there, and you went
Right.
back and get it? Okay. And so what you did with that bag then was you took it to the property and evidence room?
Eventually, yes, sir.
Okay, when would that have been? How much later?
It was that day. I think it was logged in on the 13th. Later that day, myself and Investigator Sparkman together did it.
Okay, you Investigator Sparkman. Do you know was it you Investigator Sparkman in the chain of custody?
Him. I was with him because I went and field tested before we took it. And
And,
therefore, we gave me the item number JS4, Jerry Sparkman 4.
Okay.
The item number.
And do you know who got it out of the property and evidence room?
To be tested.
Let me just ask you what you're pulling out there to refresh your memory with.
Property and evidence sheet, which would document the chain of custody. Or actually the lab report. I don't have what chemist, but it would have been brought out later, at a later date, to be positively identified by the forensic crime lab, but I don't know which chemist did it.
Okay, so would the chemist have come and gotten it, or did somebody else get it and take it to the chemist?
No, the chemist would come down. They would put in a request saying it wanted to be analyzed, and then the chemist would come from the lab, pick it up out of property and evidence, and take it back to the lab.
Okay, so you don't know who the chemist was?
I do know.
So you don't know who then had that State's Exhibit number 9 after you?
I don't.
Did you bring it to court today?
I did not.
Do you know who brought it to court today?
Not exactly. I could assume it would be the lead investigator, Investigator Sparkman.
Do you know who gave it to Investigator Sparkman?
In property and evidence, I do not.
Just a couple other questions. Did you have any other involvement in the case after the 13th?
Yes, I obtained another search warrant for 2 Tyndall Avenue.
Okay, and when did you write your report?
I wrote it months earlier, but it wasn't finalized until October 2024. It was a rough draft. It did not get processed.
What does being processed mean?
Clear through the what we call our Code 5, an incident report system, where it's set in limbo for a time as a draft before it was approved.
Okay, when was it approved?
October 15, 2024.
2024. Was that after you met with the prosecutor's office to prepare for trial?
I'm not sure if that's when we did or not. I can't recall when we met. But it was close to that because we're doing an inventory of what needed to be done, and this is one thing that needed to be done.
For finalizing the report?
That's correct.
One moment, please. Thank you. Nothing further.
Anything else?
I was gonna say, now call Kristen McCall.
Place your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Okay.
Please state your name for the record.
Kristen Marie McCall. Good afternoon.
Could you please tell the jury where you're currently employed and what your role is there?
I work for Greenwood County Department of Public Safety, the Forensics Division.
Okay. And what specifically do you do for the forensics division?
I work in drug analysis.
Okay. And could you break down a little bit about what is drug analysis? I know for some of us, but what is drug analysis?
So in my job, I'm a forensic chemist. So officers may pull a suspect over or arrive on a scene and there's suspected drugs there. So they collect them from the suspect and then they submit them for property and evidence for analysis. Sometimes on the TV shows you may see that they do a chemical color test and then they put it on top of the hood. Well, that's giving them an indication of what they're looking at. But a problem is sometimes that can give false positives, such as cocaine and benzocaine will both give you the same color test. So that's important why those drugs come to us, because we confirm or we not confirm what the officer thinks it is.
Okay. And what is your background there as far as education and how you landed in that role with the sheriff's office?
Before I worked in forensics with the Department of Public Safety, I worked 13 years as a pharmacy technician, and then I also did 2 years at family court, and then I have 10 years currently with the forensics division. I have a Bachelor's of Science in Biology, minor in chemistry, and a Master's in Pharmacogenomics from the Manchester School of Pharmacy.
And you may have said this, and I apologize for
Yes.
saying it again, but how long have you been in your current role with the sheriff's office?
I've worked for Greenwood County Department of Public Safety. We're separate from the sheriff's office.
Oh, see, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, we have. I've been there for 10 years, and before that, I worked 2 years in family court.
Okay. And in your current position, is it fair to say it primarily consists of you processing and analyzing these substances that are submitted to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Suspected controlled substances.
And approximately how many cases a month do you process?
I would say in a year, I'll do over 10,000 cases.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time the state would move to qualify Ms. McCall as an expert in drug analysis.
Defense counsel?
I've got no objection.
Okay. The court will find her qualified. Dr. pursuant to agreement of the parties in drug analysis. Ladies and gentlemen, an expert witness is a person, or normally a person cannot give an opinion, but an expert witness is allowed to. And so when a person testifies, normally they must testify as to either what they saw, they heard, or sensed by smell. However, we do have an exception when someone is qualified because of education or experience, and they are permitted to give their opinion in certain areas the court qualifies, in which the court qualifies them. And this witness will be qualified in the area of drug analysis to give an opinion testimony in the area. However, that does not mean that you must accept the opinion, but it is evidence for you to use in any way you see fit and give it the weight and credibility that you believe is appropriate. Please continue.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. McCall, are you involved, how are you involved in the present case?
Well, I don't really read the background on all the cases that we get because we get so many in. Currently, our backlog is 7 months behind. So how I got a subpoena, and then I had a pre-trial meeting with the solicitors, and that is how I became involved, that this was going to be going to court.
Okay, let me get more specific. Were you charged with processing any substances as it relates to this case?
I was involved with this case because the officer requested it to be analyzed. Because I'm assuming at scene, he thought it was a controlled substance, so he went to property and evidence, put the evidence there, and put a lab request with it. And then I go down to property and evidence and I say, can I have some drugs? And they hand me sometimes 60 cases of drugs, and I have to go through every single one of them and analyze them. And then I write a report, and then the report goes out to the different parties that are involved in the case.
Okay. If I showed you a specific item, would you be able to confirm whether or not you conducted any testing on it for this case?
Yes, because when I receive my stuff, I make sure it's sealed by the officer, and if it's not, it goes back down to property and evidence, because you want to make sure your evidence is sealed, because that means that somebody could have tampered with it. So if it was open, I take it back down to property, and I say, I'm not working this item, you need to get the officer to fix this. So when it gets fixed, I will go back down there and I will get the item, and I will come back to the lab and I'll do a chemical test that gives me an idea of what I'm looking at, and then I do 2 confirmatory tests, which is a FTIR and a GCMS analysis.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 9 that's currently in evidence. Showing you State's Exhibit 9 there.
Okay.
Could you confirm whether or not that's the item that you did testing for specifically for this case?
Okay. Should I leave it down here? Am I allowed to bring it out?
You can.
Okay. Okay. Yes. This is my item.
How do you know that?
I know that because I have a date when I worked it, and then there are my initials. And then here's a date when I opened the officer's bag that he sealed it in. And then after I weighed it, here is the weight of the item and then the item. So my initialing is all over this bag.
Okay. Did you create a report that indicated your findings as to what that substance was?
I did.
Okay. And what did you determine that substance to be?
And, Your Honor, I would object from the standpoint, Rule 901, for the purpose of authentication of the exhibit, the state has to establish from beginning to end, because it's fungible, who handled it, what they did with it. The probative value of her opinion as it relates to the nature of that substance is nil, because there's been no chain of custody established, no full chain of custody established as to what happened from the time it was seized until the time this witness tested it. So with that, we would object pursuant to 403.
And I would overrule, and your objection is noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I can ask the question again.
Yes, sir.
What were the results of any testing you conducted on State's Exhibit 9?
So after the test is, after we analyze the substance, I create a report, and it goes through peer review, which is that one of my peers have to look at my results, and we have to agree that we both agree that this substance is what it is. So when he has a state exhibit, I have an item of JS4, and it was described as a bag containing powder substance when I received it. But when I work my cases, I take everything out of the bag, because weight is very important when you're looking at charges for individuals. So I did create a report, and here it is.
Okay. And what did you determine? Did you determine that that item is a controlled substance?
I did determine that this item is a controlled substance, yes.
And what controlled substance?
Cocaine, 4.97 grams.
Okay.